podcast was brought to you by
It's Done Promotion.
W Epitome.
3 weeks.
It's time for your main event here on the D's Notes Banter.
I'm excited about this next interview with world champion boxer, Mr. Homer Lee Gibbins. Let's see if we can get him on the phone.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, man, you doing okay?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
Staying busy.
What got you into boxing?
As a 6-year-old boy in 1976, I loved wrestling. Wrestling was my thing. I loved it. And I had a following just like the wrestlers. And I would go to the wrestling matches. And just like every kid, I think everything I saw was real. And so I came home, and the move that was out at the time was the brainbuster. You stood on the top of the rope, and you jumped off and sailed through the air, and you headbutted whoever was on the ground. And my dad came home from working construction, laying on the ground, and I said, "Ooh, this is a perfect opportunity for me to perfect the brainbuster." So I got on the back of the couch and sailed through the air and headbutted him, and he made sure at first that I wasn't dead. And then he told my mom, he said, "Tomorrow I'm taking you to the gym." And I went to the gym on Wednesday, and they said, "Hey, we got a fight for Saturday if he wants to fight." My dad said, "You want to fight?" I said, "Yeah, I fought that Saturday and lost." But all his high school buddies came to watch me fight, and it was just like a wrestling match. I got to walk out, and everybody cheered my name. I was hooked.
So you were hooked at that point, huh?
Oh, yeah. I was like, this is for me.
Growing up in the same area that you did, I know there was a lot of troublemakers. Did you have to box a lot at Riverdale?
No, because people kind of thought I was crazy. Plus, I always try to get along with everybody. I'm from a different, I just always thought to myself that I want to be friends with people. And so most people didn't, because I didn't want to.
That's a good thing, because I've seen you fight, man. I think they would have been on the losing end of that. So well, there was a little bit smarter people that I grew up with than I thought.
Yeah, like I say, if you're friends with people, every now and then you've got somebody that, me and Mark Beasley, which was the other guy that boxed in school, and he was a little bigger than me. And we grew up, so we both started at 6 years old together. And as you grow old, you start thinking, people start talking too much. They start telling somebody, "Oh, you think you could be Homer?" Or "Homer, you think you could be Mark?" and they bat you against one another. We fought right out of high school, and I won the fight. And for years, we didn't even talk. And then a few years ago, we got to be friends again and just reconnected. And man, I love that dude.
Who taught you how to box?
I started off at Jesse Draper Boys Club in East Point. My dad was one that worked really hard to teach, but Dad, the coach over there at Margals. And then we went to the Warren Memorial Boys Club with Ted Morgan, and that was over in Jonesboro at the Jonesboro Recreation Center. They had the Ted Wright Boys Club. Yeah, they had the gym over there. That was in the 80s, I think. So it's just my dad was a key person that was always focused on me learning the sport.
Throughout the years, now that you are retired, have you taught anybody else how to box? Are you much of a teacher?
I am. I do teach boxing right now. I've got that kid that I think the world of. It opens the door for me to be in kids' lives. I've got a group of senior citizens that have Parkinson's disease.
Okay.
That I work with teaching boxing, because it works on their balance, it works on their cognitive skills, and we love it. I mean, I love being involved in their life. I do teach boxing, but I do not teach it to actually compete, basically, because I don't want to be at the gym as much as I am. My wife would be a little upset with that. I was very hesitant to teach anybody, to train anybody to fight, because I just don't want to spend the time away from home. Gotcha.
Speaking of kids, is it true that you have 7?
That is true.
Wow. What's your oldest?
My part was easy. My oldest is 30.
30.
I got a 30-year-old son, and then my daughter just turned 30. And then I've got 15, 15, 13, 11, and 6.
So were they all planned, or were there's a couple that
No.
you Don't know if we should be saying that. What do you mean, Dad, I wouldn't play it?
If you would have told me when I was in my teenage years, you're going to grow up and have 7 children, I'd have been like, I don't know what you're drinking, but I want some of that. Because that's good stuff.
Sounds like you had finally got one out of the house, and then you decided to have 6 or 7 more. Hey, let's touch a little bit of base on the mafia. What can you tell us with your ties or a little bit of relationship that you've had with that?
I know a lot of guys that are connected. Love these guys. I respect them greatly. I have a different look about the mafia than some people. There's people who only know what they read. They don't know the whole story.
Right.
I got to be friends with John Sonny Friend, 3 years old in 2020 when he passed away. Matter of fact, when he was 95, they arrested him again, put him in jail. Just the corruption of the police. They wanted him to turn to rat on somebody, and he never would. He never would. I mean, I admire the man. I love the fact that he wouldn't rant no matter what they did to him. I'm not saying no. And he told me, he says, once you ever give into it, they have to be, you're bound to it. And you don't have to worry about it. And just to show, he got a friend of mine, Greg Vita, showed him some videos and he fight. And he said, oh, that reminds me when I was a kid. Oh my God, look at that right hand. Man, I was flabbergasted. Just a very cool guy. People that knew him in the city up there in New York would tell you that he would show up his back. But that's not the story you hear. And I tell people all the time, there's 2 sides of everybody. I'm the nicest guy you ever want to meet, and I will be the nicest guy you ever want to meet until you make me not be nice. And then you're going to get what you get.
So was there, coming up through boxing, is that how you met these people? Was there a lot of corruption or a lot of influence from the mafia in boxing back in your days?
There's a lot of people that speculate about certain fighters fighting this fight. The thing is that fighters have too much pride. It's easier to buy a judge or buy a referee than it is to buy a fight. We just have too much pride. And now, I never was approached by anybody to say, hey, Homer, I'll go a fight. They knew I would. It's just not the kind of person I am.
Right.
But I went into people's hometowns and beat them and watched the decision be so lopsided. It's like, come on, you tell me that this person involved.
I don't necessarily say that was the influence of the mafia, but you have seen legends in your time that were definitely questionable to a point where it was really obvious that something corrupt had happened.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of corruption going on. Like when I was fighting this guy, George Scott, who was trained in Antelope Dundee, who had Muhammad Ali. George Scott, they picking out gloves. They had a pair of gloves especially picked out for George. Hey, George, here, try these on. And George was trying to try some other gloves on. He goes, no, try these on. And so he tried them on. And my dad said, hold on. Let me try the gloves. Then the guy gives my dad the gloves that I had already picked out. He goes, no, I want the ones we're getting hit by, not the ones we're going to hit him by. And when my dad put his hand in there, I was like, there was no padding, very little padding. And my dad's like, nah. The night of the fight, I can't tell you what happened back in the dresser. I just know that we saw it firsthand. I think that there was a little underhand stuff going on. And then they wound up buying the judges because the guy couldn't get me out of there. And I lost a split decision in my hometown of Georgia. That just lets you know people can be bought.
And you said you have never been approached by that. So do you think that was because of your integrity or who you were working with that was in your corner? Is it something that most people that, get corrupted, something that is known in the business, or is it just something that is questionable?
Money is always a factor. Boxers are even the ones that are rich are notoriously lose everything in the end. That money is always a factor. I mean, I never really made big money like that, so I really didn't care. I was just trying to preserve a name, and I wanted to be remembered. I can't really say that boxing is corrupt. There's the whole business end of boxing is corrupt. When you got a guy going into the ring and you're coming out, the promoters are going to come out on top regardless of who fights. That's why they have a hard time making fights. It's not because of fighters think can beat anybody on the side of the ring, but it's the promoters that say, okay, well, if this guy wins, I have to promote him for the next 4 fights. Or if this guy wins, we already have a contract. That's where they don't make fights, because people are like, well, they just want fights, because you got a promoter just looking out for their best interest. Not the fighters, just like me, they want to make a name. They want to beat the best that they got out there. But we can't control the promotion and the sport.
I gotcha. Very interesting stuff. So I hear that you are on the ballot for the Georgia Boxing Hall of Fame. Could you explain what the Boxing Hall of Fame is in Georgia?
It's the Georgia Sports Hall of Fame in Macon.
Okay.
I was on the ballot this year, and I'm on it for the next, I think, next 7 years.
Okay.
I didn't get a duck this year. Georgia has some wonderful people, sports athletes that have come through. Not very, but Georgia's not a boxing town. I got a friend of mine who just lived it. I didn't get in, and I was like, I mean, there's some great people that have competed in sports, and I shouldn't go before them. He said, I don't care. This is not a boxing town. That's the problem with this place. I mean, he was yelling at me on the phone like, hey, just calm down. You should, when you first retired, you should have been inducted in. I'm just thankful that people remember me, man. I mean, that's awesome. To be on the ballot. It's pretty cool.
Definitely. It's kind of confusing because where the area that I grew up in, Evander Holyfield was a part of our community. It's a wild that it's not known as a boxing town when you have one of the best world champions that's ever fought in the ring, a part of our community. Have you ever been a part of Holyfield's camp or anything like that? Or do you think that if he got behind it more, that it would be more known as a boxing town?
I managed my career for the first 3 years. I think 2 to 3 years of my career. He was my manager. We grew up in the gym together, and he's like my big brother. We still talk daily. He sends me Bible verses. But he did get behind boxing here in Georgia. He opened the event for boxing and trying to pull. If the media is not going to get behind it, you're not going anywhere. You can't do it by yourself. You can't promote the boxing by yourself, and that's what he was trying to do. We've had some great fighters that come through here. Vernon Forrest, Evander Holy, Johnny, which is Yaya McClain. Yeah, we've had some great fighters come through here. The problem is, like I say, it's just a place where no one gets recognized. It's hard to get promotional deals. It's hard to get people behind you to support you. A lot of times when I fought and fight, it seems because promoters want to see ticket sales. And I had people that called me up and say, hey, Homer, we're going to see your fight. Okay, well, buy a ticket. But no, I mean, I had everybody in the world wanting to come when I give them tickets. And sometimes I fall on a number of fights where I just got paid tickets. And what I did was turn around and give the tickets away to people to come to the fights. Just because I loved what I was doing. So I didn't really care about making the money. And if I can give you a ticket, sometimes I give it to you. Sometimes I sold it at a cheaper price. Sometimes I just gave it. It was just to have a crowd there. So the atmosphere was electric. When I went in the ring, I just was willing to pour everything out to it. But yeah, it's crazy because, like I say, this is not a boxing town. And it should be with Evander Holyfield.
Most definitely. And now, back in my days, boxing was hugely popular because of names like Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, people like that. But I don't hear much about boxing nowadays. Is that because I'm just not paying attention, or do you think that the hype of the 80s and 90s boxing has died a little bit?
Just like I say, it's the promotion angle of everything. Everything is, back in the older days, fighting Tyson, even with the Tyson fight, it took forever to make that fight because of promoting. It's the business end of boxing. I love, as I told Evander, me and Evander talked not too long ago, he had some fighters that he was doing the Evander Holyfield Real Deal promotions. And I said, are you signing? You got both fighters under contract. He's like, why would I have both fighters under contract? And I said, Evander, everybody you fought, up until you fought Ricky Parkey, to unify cruiserweight title, was under contract to do this. What? And so then he started looking it up, and he said, hey, he was on all the people. Yeah. So regardless of who won, it's hard for a person to understand the business end of boxing versus the boxing. That's why most times fighters will make terrible promoters, trying to promote themselves, because of the fact that you have to understand that there's more to it than what you think. The business end of boxing is totally different than getting in there whooping somebody's butt. I wish it was the same, but it's not.
What I think took over the scene of boxing is this MMA fighting style. Are you a fan of that? And if that would have been popular back in your day, would you have been involved?
Towards the end of my career, I was working out at independent MMA over in McDonough. And there were some guys there that fought MMA. And I was helping them work with their hands. And I love combative sports, regardless of what it is. I'd rather watch that than anything else. But a lot of times I don't watch anything. I know I've been hit too many times, so I'm trying to increase the knowledge. If I lose some, I get the guts. But I went to this MMA gym. I was working with this guy's hand, and he was getting better and better. And then all of a sudden, he had this bright idea. He said, "Hey, what if we get in the ring, and you do what you do, and I do what I do?" And I was like, "You do what are you trying to say?" He goes, "You get in there, and you do what you do, and I do what I do." And I says, "Hey, you want to kick me?" I think, I ain't never really been kicked before. And he said, "Just you do what you do." So I said, yeah, I was reluctant, but then I finally said, "Okay, fine." So the bell rang. I shot across the ring. I was on him like, "Wah!" And I was hitting, and I about killed him. And afterwards, I ain't never seen the side of you before. You ain't never seen me get kicked either.
Oh man, that's hilarious. That is hilarious. I would like to just jump back to what we talked something we were talking about earlier. You training these senior citizens with Parkinson's. Are you very familiar? I guess you are, because you train them of Parkinson's disease. Me and a buddy of mine was talking the other day. He was the guitar player for Jeff Cook, and Jeff Cook has just lost his battle with Parkinson's. And we were discussing the only other case of Parkinson's that the only other two that I could recall would be Michael J. Fox and Muhammad Ali. Now, I'd always heard that Muhammad Ali got the Parkinson's from too many blows to the head, or probably that's where he got Parkinson's. And we got discussing the disease Parkinson's, and do you know if that is a hereditary disease, or how do people get Parkinson's?
Parkinson's is very common amongst older people. Tremors of the hands. Boxing does not help it. As far as getting in the ring, getting hit in the head, that's not going to help it. But the cardiovascular that you're doing, repetition that you're doing, learning to get, because in boxing, you're going to have to balance. You're exerting yourself, trying to punch, stuff like that, and you're going through repetition, you're learning, you're gaining confidence. So it's actually great for Parkinson's.
Okay. Wow.
That's when a friend started telling me about teaching a Parkinson boxing class. I was like, what? Because I was thinking back about Ali, but this is a non-combative class. You're not getting two people that are elderly and they're beating each other. But you're going to
I would like to watch that.
Now, me and Tony Cappuccino, one of the guys at my Parkinson's class, he comes and bangs on me a little bit because he says, "One day I'm going to hit you right in the mouth." I love it, man. I told my wife, if I could do this every day, if I could make enough money doing this every day with my elderly people, quit my job.
Wow.
Because I love investing the time with them. We're somewhat of a support group because we were on a text together. "Why didn't you show up to class? What's going on?" When they'll come in and say, "Hey, next week I got a doctor's appointment." So we're just there for one another. It's an awesome thing. I mean, I sent you an article where it was in the Georgia Recreation and Parks magazine about what I'm doing, and because the lady was just flabbergasted with what she saw. Here you got 10 elderly people boxing around in a rugby ring. It's pretty awesome.
It sounds awesome. Where if somebody was interested, or somebody had an elderly patient or an elderly relative that they were interested in getting them in contact with you, where do they sign up for this type of thing?
I'm teaching boxing right now at the Spalding Senior Center in Griffin. One of my friends, Paul Delgado, he teaches a class up in Atlanta called Delgado Boxing. And look online, try to find out Rock Steady Boxing. It's a big organization. It's just boxing. It's really a cool thing. I was wondering how God was going to use my boxing career once it's in, to be able to jump into this right here and teaching this, and it being an outreach.